Blocked by Jones to the end zone and caught! Jefferson! That is a touchdown!
A two-star recruit from Louisiana who didn't catch a single pass his freshman year of college walked into the NFL as a replacement for a fan favorite.
3rd and 4, Kirk passes, and it's caught at the 25 by Jefferson.
And in his very first season, he broke the rookie receiving record. That's the short version. The longer version is that every single season since, 6 of them now, has been historically elite. Not just good or where he put up just Pro Bowl numbers. We're talking about the kind of production that makes you go back and check the record books twice because you don't believe what you're reading. The question worth asking is, how does a wide receiver do that amongst multiple quarterbacks, hamstring injuries, scheme changes, and one of the worst starting quarterbacks we've ever seen? That's what we're going to be answering today. Justin Jefferson grew up in Louisiana, in a small town just about 25 miles outside of New Orleans. Football ran in his family. His brother Jordan was a quarterback for LSU and helped lead them to a BCS national championship game in 2012. His brother Ricky played safety for the Tigers from 2013 to 2016, so when Justin showed up at Destrian High School, the expectation he'd be like his brothers was huge, but early on, he disappointed. He was 5'7" and around 125 pounds as a sophomore. He played JV as a safety and he broke his elbow while on the scout team. 3 years into his high school career, the NFL looked like a fantasy. What changed was a growth spurt. Between his sophomore and junior years, he shot up to 6'1" and gained close to 40 pounds. The knees that had been locking up on him finally stabilized his senior year and he exploded for 44 catches, 956 yards, and 9 TDs. Good enough numbers, but the recruiting world barely noticed. He came out as a two-star prospect with one real offer, LSU, and that offer really only existed because the Jefferson name carried weight with the coaching staff. He arrived at LSU in the fall of 2017 as the last scholarship player added to the class, showed up 3 days in a training camp, and played in just 2 games that year without catching a single pass, while being buried on the depth chart and not really a factor yet. He spent that entire offseason working on his body and studying film obsessively, trying to figure out how the best receivers in the country created separation and what defensive backs were looking for at each level. It paid off in 2018. As a sophomore, he became LSU's leading receiver with 54 catches, 875 yards, and 6 touchdowns. Good production on a team without a consistent passing game, but 2019 was a completely different situation. Joe Burrow transferred in and LSU installed a spread system built around the passing game. And Justin Jefferson was suddenly lining up alongside Jamar Chase in what became arguably the most productive receiving college duo in football history. Justin led the nation with 111 receptions, added 1,540 yards and 18 touchdowns, all while LSU ran through their schedule undefeated heading into the college football playoff. The Peach Bowl against Oklahoma is where the national audience really saw what Jefferson could do. 14 catches, 227 yards, 4 touchdowns, all of that before halftime. And that record still stands. LSU won 63-28 and went on to beat Clemson for the national title. Justin had 9 catches for 106 yards in that game too. Scouts still had questions heading into the draft though. The top concern was speed. Could a receiver who won so much through route running and timing replicate that against NFL corners? The other concern was contact. He had Joe Burrow throwing him the ball and Jamar Chase drawing coverage on the other side. How much of that production was the player versus the situation? The Combine answered the speed question directly. Justin ran a 4.43 40. Teams were expecting a 4.5 or a 4.6 and so they had to recalibrate. The system question, however, as it turned out, would take a little bit longer. In March of 2020, the Vikings traded Stefon Diggs to the Buffalo Bills. He was a cornerstone for that franchise, a top 15 receiver in the league, and the guy who caught the Minneapolis Miracle. Stefon had just put up 63 catches for 1,130 yards the year before. The trade sent a first-round pick back to Minnesota, 22nd overall along with other picks. The locker room felt the loss and so did the fans. Then came the draft. 4 receivers went off the board before Justin. Henry Ruggs went 12, Jerry Jeudy went 15th, CeeDee Lamb went 17th, and then Jalen Reagor went 21st, 1 spot ahead of Jefferson. Arguably the biggest miss in Howie Roseman's GM career for the Eagles. Minnesota took him with the very next pick that they got back from Buffalo, and he was walking straight into the spot Diggs had just vacated. No preseason, and COVID protocols meant limited practice time, virtual meetings through most of the offseason, and almost no ramp-up period for a rookie trying to learn an NFL offense. The conditions were about as difficult as a first-year player could face. Most rookies struggle under normal conditions. He was being asked to replace a Pro Bowl receiver in a compressed, chaotic offseason. But what happened next became the standard every rookie gets measured against now. But what happened next became the standard every rookie receiver gets measured against from now on. His first few games in the NFL were solid if unspectacular. The first week against Green Bay, he had 26 yards, and the second week against Indianapolis, he had 85. The Vikings were still trying to figure out how to use him, and Justin was still trying to get used to the NFL speed. Nothing really suggested he was about to break out for a record-breaking campaign, but then came week 3. Against the Tennessee Titans, he went out and caught 7 passes for 175 yards and a touchdown. The Vikings lost the game, but the league got its first real look at what this kid could do. The way he sank his hips into breaks, the way he tracked the ball, and the way he separated from defenders who had full knowledge of where he was going, it wasn't a fluke performance built on one big play. He earned those yards in chunks throughout the entire game. Then week 4 against Houston, 4 catches, 103 yards, back-to-back 100-yard games as a rookie, which made him just a 5th receiver in Vikings history to do it. The comparison with Randy Moss was starting now. By week 6 against Atlanta, the stats were becoming something you couldn't ignore. 9 catches, 166 yards, and 2 TDs. He was doing this without preseason reps against defenses that had spent the entire offseason studying everything he did at LSU. The standard excuse for rookie receivers about just giving them time didn't apply to Justin. The 1,000-yard mark came in week 13 against Jacksonville, making him one of the fastest players in NFL history to reach it. By the time the season finale in Detroit arrived, he needed 133 yards to break the NFL rookie receiving record, which had been set by Anquan Boldin back in 2003. He got 9 catches for 133 yards and broke it. The Pro Football Hall of Fame collected the gloves he wore that day and the game ball. They went straight into a display case. Final numbers for the season was 88 catches for 1,400 yards and 7 touchdowns. Those 88 receptions also broke Randy Moss's Vikings record for a rookie, pushing past the 69 catches, that Randy Moss had in 1998. He earned a Pro Bowl, a second-team All-Pro selection, won Sporting News Rookie of the Year, and the hardware was real, all while the tape backed it up. Now, rookies break out all the time. The NFL has a long list of first-year receivers who lit the league on fire and then got figured out the following season. Shout out Chase Claypool. The leverage that you had as an unknown disappears, and suddenly what worked in week 3 of your rookie year doesn't work anymore because everyone in the building knows exactly what you're going to do before you do it. That's the test that separates a great rookie season from the start of a great career, and year 2 was going to answer that question. Year 2 answered that question really fast. Defensive coordinators had spent an entire offseason studying his leverage, his packages, his route releases. The sophomore slump conversation was everywhere heading into 2021, because it always is when a receiver has the kind of rookie year Jefferson had. The idea being that once defenses adjust, the production drops. It makes sense in theory. It just didn't account for the fact that Justin kept getting better. He finished 2021 with 108 catches, 1,616 yards, and 10 TDs, second in the league in receiving yards. The teams that had spent the entire offseason drawing up ways to slow him down watched him post those numbers anyway. Because adjusting to Justin Jefferson isn't a film problem, it's a talent problem. You can know exactly where he's going on a given route and still not be able to stop him, because the separation comes from the execution, not the element of surprise. November of that season was where he really took over. Against Green Bay in week 11, with the Vikings sitting at 5-5 and needing a win to keep their playoffs hopes alive, Justin went out and caught 8 passes for 169 yards and 2 touchdowns in a 34-31 win, earning NFC Offensive Player of the Week. Over the full month of November, he put up 464 yards and 3 touchdowns across 4 games, which earned him NFC Offensive Player of the Month. The Vikings just kept losing games that year, however, but the one constant every single week was that Justin showed up. By December, he passed Odell Beckham Jr. for the most receiving yards by any player through their first 2 NFL seasons. He'd already rewritten a record that had stood as the benchmark for early elite career production. He missed first-team All-Pro by a single vote, which tells you the respect was there, the voters were just slightly behind where the tape already was. Then 2022 arrived and everything changed. His head coach Mike Zimmer was out, and Kevin O'Connell came in from the Rams as a new head coach, and his explicit plan was to build the offense around Jefferson's ability to manipulate leverage. The offense became a tool built specifically for what Justin does best: get open. Week 1 against Green Bay, he had 9 catches for 184 yards and 2 touchdowns. The tone for the season was set on opening day and it never really shifted. But the moment that defined that year and his career so far was in Week 10 at Buffalo. 4th and 18, Vikings trailing, and Kirk Cousins launches it deep. Justin goes up and rips the ball away from Bills cornerback Cam Lewis with one hand while falling to the ground. 32 yards and a first down. The Vikings had a 6% win probability on that play. They won it in overtime. The catch was named NFL Player of the Year at the end of the season, and the arm sleeves and the gloves he wore that day went to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He finished the year leading the league with catches with 128, 7th most in a single season in NFL history, also leading the league in receiving yards with 1,809, which broke Randy Moss's Vikings franchise record by nearly 200 yards. The AP Offensive Player of the Year award went to him, beating out Patrick Mahomes. He won first team All-Pro, his 3rd Pro Bowl, and at 23 years old, the argument that he was the best receiver in football was essentially closed already. And yet a vocal group kept pointing to Kirk Cousins or the system or the new scheme, the idea that Justin's numbers were at least partially a product of who was throwing him the ball and how the offense was built. But he was going to prove them wrong soon enough. The 2023 season started off looking like it would be more of the same. 9 catches for 150 yards in week 1 and 11 catches for 159 yards in week 2. Through the first 4 games, he led the entire league in receiving yards and touchdowns, and the per-game pace had him on track to challenge the single-season record. Everything pointed towards another massive year, but then week 5 against Kansas City ended that. A hamstring injury put him on IR, and he missed the next 7 games. 3 weeks after Jefferson went down, Kirk Cousins tore his Achilles. The Vikings were suddenly starting Nick Mullins and Josh Dobbs at quarterback, trying to survive what had become a lost season with the backup-level roster at the most important position on the field. Justin came back in week 14 and finished the year with 1,074 yards in just 10 games played. The per-game average was essentially identical to his 2022 pace, which tells you everything about where he was on an individual level that season. He just ran out of games to put the full year together. The Vikings went 7-10 and they missed the playoffs. By the end of the year, it was clear that the quarterback situation was about to completely blow up. Kirk Cousins left for Atlanta in March of 2024 on a 4-year deal worth $180 million. The Vikings used the 10th overall pick on Michigan quarterback JJ McCarthy, who represented the long-term plan at the position. But JJ tore his meniscus in the preseason and needed surgery before throwing a single regular season pass. Minnesota turned to Sam Darnold, who had signed a 1-year bridge deal, a guy who'd been drafted 3rd overall in 2018 and then spent 4 seasons bouncing between the Jets, Panthers, and 49ers without ever finding a stable footing. Vegas set the Vikings win total at around 7 or 8 games, and nobody was picking them to really compete. Sam had never come close to looking like a franchise quarterback, and Justin's quarterback situation had just completely reshuffled, all while the team was essentially rebuilding on the fly and trying to win simultaneously. Justin, for his part, signed a 4-year, $140 million extension that offseason, making him the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history at that time. He got a new contract and a new quarterback, but still had the same expectation. Before the season started, the case against Justin Jefferson, though there wasn't that many people talking about it, was that he always had a really good quarterback in Kirk Cousins, and a scheme-friendly head coach in Kevin O'Connell. But he was about to put all of that to rest with Sam Darnold. Justin talked early in the season about how he put flavor on his routes, little variations in his release, his timing, his stem, things that let Sam read his body language pre-snap and know exactly where he was going to be. It sounds simple, but what it actually means is that Justin had adapted his entire approach to the quarterback he was working with. He wasn't asking Sam to learn a complex system, he was making himself an easier target. Week 2 against San Francisco, he caught a short pass and turned it into a 97-yard touchdown, the longest of his career, just taking a reception behind the line and outrunning the entire 49ers defense to the end zone. Over the first 8 games of the season, he already had 780 yards and 5 touchdowns, and the Vikings were playing far better than anyone projected at that time. The milestone that mattered most came in Week 13 against Arizona, where he had 1,000 yards for the 5th straight season. That made him just the 4th receiver in NFL history to reach 1,000 yards in each of his first 5 years, joining Randy Moss, Mike Evans, and AJ Green. In Week 16 at Seattle, he had 10 catches, 144 yards, and 2 touchdowns in a game that pushed Minnesota to 13-2 on the season.
Off play action, stepping up, launching downfield, and it is caught!
The Vikings finished 14-3, which stands as one of the best records in franchise history. Justin closed that year with 103 catches, 1,533 yards, and 10 touchdowns. First team All-Pro for the 2nd time, 4th Pro Bowl, and he finished 2nd in the entire league in receiving yards, only behind Jamar Chase, who had a generational year of his own. All of that was Sam Darnold throwing him the ball. The Kirk Cousins made him argument didn't survive the season, and neither did the system argument, because O'Connell's scheme works precisely because Jefferson makes it work. That's what a franchise-altering player actually looks like when you see one. Then came the season that tested even that conclusion. Then came the season in 2025 that tested even that conclusion. Sam left for Seattle after the 2024 season, and JJ McCarthy was finally ready to take the reins. But take the reins, he didn't really do that well. What followed was one of the harder years Justin Jefferson has ever faced at the professional level, and yet the streak stayed alive. JJ McCarthy threw more interceptions and touchdowns in 2025. His QBR sat near the bottom of qualifying starters all season. There were stretches where the Vikings' passing game was actively hurting them rather than helping, and everyone in the building knew it. Justin even felt it. Cameras caught him on the sideline after a bad drive in November, slamming his helmet on the bench and sitting alone while the defense took the field. He didn't hide his frustration, and he really didn't need to. Anyone watching those games could see exactly what was happening. At Super Bowl week in February, Jefferson sat down for an interview and got asked directly how he managed to put up 1,000 yards given what the quarterback situation looked like from the outside. His answer was direct. Honestly, I don't know. I really don't. He talked about games where he finished with 11 yards, 20 yards, 1 or 2 catches. He credited the team and the program. He said all the right things about McCarthy as a person and a leader, but the admission himself, a receiver of his caliber, genuinely unsure how he reached a milestone that most NFL receivers never touch in their best seasons, communicated more than any criticism would have. The Vikings actually had to engineer a specific game plan in the meaningless Week 18 finale against Green Bay just to manufacture enough opportunities for Jefferson to get over the threshold. He finished with 84 catches, 1,048 yards, and 2 touchdowns in 17 games. 6 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons to start a career. Randy Moss did it, Mike Evans did it, and now him. He also became the all-time leader in receiving yards through a player's first 6 seasons, pushing past Moss with 84,080 yards. And in October against the Chargers on Thursday Night Football, a routine in-breaking route put him over 8,000 career yards, making him the youngest player in NFL history to reach that number, besting Moss by 168 days. Even with how bad JJ McCarthy was, he survived through it all and still broke records. The record list at this stage reads like a history book. He has the most receiving yards through the first 6 seasons ever, most receptions through first 6 seasons, fastest player to 5,000 career yards, tied for the fastest to 6,000, and the youngest to 8,000. Consistency at this level across this many different situations is what actually separates elite from generational. And Justin will probably have a bounce back season after the Vikings sign Kyler Murray this offseason. I expect big things from him again. So there you have it. Watch this next video if you haven't already, and subscribe if you're new. Thanks for watching.